Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the Andy Warhol Diary and the Razzle Dazzle. Today, we're going to be taking a look at who was the redactress on the diary, and we're going to be taking a look at the first entry, which is November 24th of 1976. I was playing around with the camera settings. I hope that it looks a little bit better, the lighting and if you guys could see this setup. I know I'm going to hear it all the time. Why don't you just learn how to do Streamlabs? I'm working on it, but I'm an older person. It's tough for me to jump right in and learn something new. Like I'm sitting here struggling with PowerPoint, because we all use PowerPoint way back when, but now you don't really use it anymore and you forget those things. So I am planning on using it, and this will get easier, I promise. But first, as I always do, I'm going to start this off with a PSA. I actually designed this slide so that I could read it a little bit. If anyone has any information regarding the death of my uncle, Charles Pancheri, he was killed in his home on October 4th, 2011. He was found in his home near the sink, and he suffered from stab-like wounds. Neighbors saw a ladder in the backyard reaching up to a first floor window. And my uncle was in his 70s. He wouldn't be putting a ladder outside of the window, to climb in the window. He's an old man. Neighbors said that seemed very unusual. And one of the neighbors called 911. And when they entered, they found my uncle near the sink, left for dead on the floor. So if anyone with information, can you please call the Crime Stoppers in Union County, New Jersey? And that's at 908-654-TIPS, 908-654-TIPS, TIPS. Or you can go to www.uctip.org. So it's unioncountytip.org. And information that leads to the arrest and indictment for a single is eligible for reward up to $5,000. If you have any information, anything at all, anything that might help, please come forward. Talk to the police. It is a cold case as of now, but when I spoke to the detective, they advised me that if they received new information, they would gladly take another look at the case. But as of right now, it is a cold case. I appreciate it. Thank you. So today we're going to meet the redactress on the diary, and we're also going to take a look at the first entry in the diary, and that is Wednesday, November 24th, 1976. Pat Hackett was the editor on the diary. She actually took Andy's calls, and Andy would dictate to her what he did over the course of a day, and she would sit there on the phone and take notes or type as he was talking. A little bit about Pat is that Pat received a BOA in English Lit from Barnard College, and you could see the college right next door to her, beautiful picture, in Manhattan. In 1968, when she was an undergrad, she went to Andy's office at 33 Union Square West location to see if he needed a typist. By the spring of 1969, her finances were running low, and she intended to quit the position. Jed Johnson, Andy's longtime partner, who's with Andy on the left-hand side, was alerted to Pat's intention to quit, and he actually arranged for Andy to put her on the payroll so that she was able to stay. Jed moved in with Andy after the 1968 assassination attempt, and he was hired to run errands and do odd jobs while Andy was recovering. They had a 12-year relationship. Jed also assisted with editing films and directing his own films. He was also an avid antiques collector, and he started a decorating business. Jed became one of the most acclaimed interior designers with celebrity clients like Mick Jagger and Barbra Streisand. Babs. Just give me 1 second here. Jed was tragically killed on July 17th, 1996 at the age of 47 when TWA Flight 800 exploded off of the coast of Strong Island shortly after takeoff. Jed was most likely instantly killed when the fuel tanks exploded, and his remains were among the first to be discovered. He was originally supposed to fly out the next day, but TWA gave him an upgrade to first class if he agreed to fly out the day before his original departure. And that reminds me a lot of that phenomenon that happens. They have these planes that crash, and only half the passengers were supposed to be, half the passengers canceled, or they changed their flight at the last moment. It kind of reminds me of that, where these last minute changes can mean, life or death in a situation. If he had only stuck to his original plan, this wouldn't have happened to him. But that last minute plan, that last minute change, took a toll on his life. Andy was audited by the IRS in 1972, and afterwards, Andy started dictating a diary to Pat in order to keep account of his deductible expenses. Andy would at first do this first thing in the morning after he arrived at work, and later he would call Pat at home. So Pat had like an office next to Andy's little office space. Andy really didn't have his own desk. His feeling was he didn't need his own desk. The entire office was his. Therefore, every desk was his. Anywhere he wanted to work, he just sat down, he moved your stuff out of the way, and that's where Andy would work for the day. I mean, that makes sense, right? Let me just get down here. Weekend entries were done the following Monday morning. If Andy was traveling, he would call Pat and dictate, or just call her when he returned, and he would dictate the missing days to her. So you might have like a Friday, and then like he recounts the entire events of the weekend, and she takes the notes on Monday. So those are going to be the much longer entries that we're going to come into. Next slide. Beep. I got to do the next slide sound. Beep. Bob Colacello, who's on the left, in his book Holy Terror, which is an excellent book, by the way. Let me tell you, I ordered this right before I started this series just to get some more information. It's a lot of tea spilling. A lot of Andy's closer friends don't really like this book because he really does gossip about every single person involved with Andy, and a lot about Andy himself. A lot of Andy's personal views on things, and it was just a very insider kind of book, and he got a lot of flack from people. But I will tell you, this book is so good because if you know Andy Warhol, he ingratiated himself and involved himself and was in the middle of everything, right? So there's lots of names and dates and places and people of people and celebrities of celebrities and tiers of celebrities. And you can really get bogged down with all that. But Bob's book gives you a very high level overview of it. So there's not too much of a deep dive, but you get a really, really good sense of what a whirlwind life Andy Warhol led. Like every day there was just something to do, and something to be invited to, or he was inviting someone or showing up here or going there. Like his life was just very, very full like that. And Bob's book is excellent. Bob Colacello describes Pat as follows. She was the only girl among Andy's kids that surrounded him, and she represented the transformation of the factory from all-night party to all-day office. So Pat really brought a sense of order to all the chaos. These cast-off hangers-on weren't really welcome there anymore. Andy was kind of like getting away from that to all these people who he perceived to be just around him because they wanted something from him. Pat Hackett came in, and she really turned it into more of like a business kind of relationship, more than just like people hanging out on like the infamous couch and just getting, up to all kinds of no good things. The Daily Diary eventually grew into the Andy Warhol Diaries, which spanned from 1976 to 1987. Pat did not want her credit on the diaries to read as transcribed by, instead opting for the credit to be redacted by. Now, I looked up what you would call a female redactor, and there is no redactor or redactress. So I actually came up with that redactress. So yeah, it's my word. You can't use it. But really, that's what she was doing. She wasn't really editing the diary. I mean, she was a little, but really, Andy just spilled everything to her, and it was up to her to take out some of the much more personal things that she knew, that she just had this very intuitiveness of what Andy would like to have out there and what he'd like nobody to really see. So she really did an excellent job on that. Andy's diary really was set up just as a let's keep track of expenses, for the IRS. But slowly, as they started talking more and more, he really confided in her in some really deep conversations and very long conversations. Bob also states, after Paul Morrissey, who's on the right, and he ran the filmmaking activity for Andy. After Paul, Pat was considered to be the most eccentric personality in the factory during the 1970s. Paul Morrissey passed away from complications from pneumonia at the age of 86. Pat had very strong morals. She didn't drink, she didn't take drugs or sleep around. She was described as having a somewhat of a spinsterish style. She wore plain white blouses, long straight skirts, flat shoes, and she wore a ski vest over her clothes except for the city's hottest days. Now, I asked ImageFX to come up with this exact outfit, and this is some of what they suggested. Some of them were a little bit... I think only in the one on the left, it's actually like a ski jacket or a ski vest, I should say. More of them are, the other ones are more like fall. I just got to get a drink. Hold on. I forgot to bring it over. But I think you can get a good idea of Pat's personal style. It is a very much more professional, I'm sure, than some of the people that were showing up in Andy's world. After Warhol's death in 1968, after Warhol's death in 1989, the Warhol diaries were published in a transcribed and edited and condensed version of about 807 pages. According to Bob, Colacello that is, the full version of Andy's diaries will be made public in 2037, which is the 50th anniversary of Andy's death. The complete diary is estimated to be around 20,000 pages. So that's Pat Hackett. And my cat is dying to come in. Hold on one second. Let me let my cat in. Oh, it's you. It's not my cat. It's actually my two little kittens who are, 9 weeks old at this point. So they're into everything. And if I let him in here, he'll just be climbing all over the place. So I'm just going to leave him outside. His mom was actually spayed today, so it's a big day. She won't be having any more babies. Where is my mouse? Here we go. So for this video series, I will be using this version of the Andy Warhol diaries. It's the red version, if you're interested. So here we go. Wednesday, November 24th, 1976, the first entry in the diary in the 1989 edition. Andy was in Seattle, Washington for the opening of the Seattle Art Museum. He then went to Los Angeles for the wedding of Marisa Berenson. Hold on, I got to get back here. Marisa Berenson and Jim Randall. Also, an interesting thing is that Marisa Berenson was very into transcendental meditation, and she was in India at the same time as the Beatles. Her husband, Jim Randall, was a rivet manufacturer, which is the picture on the lower right. Everybody knows what those are, right? You know, that those are the things that were popping off, during the Titanic movie when the Titanic hit the iceberg. All those look like little nails, but they're actually rivets. They all started like bing, 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 popping off. He was a rivet manufacturer, and their wedding, which is the top right, Andy was invited to. It was one of the biggest social events of 1976, and that marriage lasted two whole years. So, party of the year. At least they got a kick-ass party out of it, right? Incidentally, I started looking up rivets and riveters because everybody knows, like, Rosie, the riveter, right? So I started thinking, like, if you know what a riveter is, it's like one of those tools where you have to hold and go, like you have to. It's like one of those, not a vibrating tool, but like it goes like back and forth, and you have to hold it in place. Using manual riveters causes a condition called HAVS, hand-arm vibration syndrome, a debilitating condition that affects the nerves, blood vessels, and joints in the hand. It causes fingers to turn pale and numb when exposed to cold. Also, it causes tingling, decreased grip strength, pain in hands and arms. Also, using riveters on galvanized steel can cause flu-like illnesses called metal fume fever, which causes chills, fatigue, headache, and a metallic taste in the mouth. Don't eat the rivets. Long-term exposure to metal fumes can increase the risk of respiratory disease, lung damage, and cancer. Marissa's sister was Berinthia, nicknamed Berry, Berenson-Perkins. She was married to Anthony Perkins, and they had 2 children together, even though Anthony Perkins was gay, and I believe that he had I'm going to say like a silent relationship with, I believe it was Tab Hunter, who, if you've seen Grease 2, he actually played I don't know if it was he's a science teacher or biology teacher. He's the one that sings reproduction. I love Grease 2, and that is a hill I will die on. I love Grease 2. And actually, I'm going to be doing a video on a couple of things on Grease 2, because there's a couple of things that bother me. Yes, I know it won worst movie of the year, whatever, but there's 1 or 2 things that just bother me a little bit, and I'm going to be doing a Grease 2 and a Poltergeist, because there's a scene in Poltergeist that doesn't sit right with me. So maybe we'll get around to talking about that. Okay, so Marissa's sister was Berry Berenson. She was married. She had an affair with Anthony Perkins. They had 2 children, even though he was gay. They were married and remained together until Anthony Perkins passed from AIDS-related complications on September 12th, 1992. Berry died on the September 11th attacks. She was a passenger on Flight 11, which crashed into the North Tower. Her name is inscribed on panel N76 at the North Pool at the September 11th Memorial and Museum in New York City. So next, Andy goes to Vancouver for the Ace Gallery show. Now, I tried to find a picture of the Ace Gallery in Vancouver, and I could not find it. It kept giving me other Ace galleries, so I got really frustrated. I'm just like, forget it. It's an art gallery, okay? Andy's complaint about Vancouver is that nobody in Vancouver buys art, and they're not interested in painting. Andy remarked, now, the difficult thing about this diary is that when Andy dictates, he has a very stream of consciousness way of talking. So he jumps around a bit. Like, he'll be in the middle of telling a story, and then he'll have a remembrance of something in the middle of the other story. So I'm trying to keep this as linear as possible. So Andy remarked about having a conversation with Catherine Guinness. Now, Catherine Guinness was at the Ace Gallery opening, and she worked for a time as Andy's personal assistant. Catherine was a member of the Guinness family who made their fortune in brewing and banking. She kept asking him, what exactly is pop art, for over 2 hours, and he was a bit annoyed by her. He then recollected that she did the same thing when Andy was interviewing blues artist Albert King, who's a guitarist, where Catherine kept asking him, what exactly is soul food? Albert King is known as the Velvet Bulldozer because of his smooth singing, and he was also very tall, with sources reporting that he was as tall as 6 feet 7 inches. Albert King, B.B. King, and Freddie King were all related and are known as the Three Kings of the Blues. However, Andy was very happy that Catherine paid for the entire cab ride from LaGuardia back to New York City. He then ate an early Thanksgiving dinner with Jed, and Jed had the car serviced for the anticipated, I don't know why that just got blurry, for the anticipated drive to Chatsford the next day to Phyllis and Jamie Wyeth's place. So Thanksgiving Day, they're going to be leaving New York City and driving to Chatsford, Pennsylvania, and having Thanksgiving dinner with Phyllis and Jamie Wyeth. And that is where we're going to pick up our next diary entry. It's actually Thanksgiving Day with the Wyeths. So on this day in history, a powerful 7.3 magnitude earthquake hit eastern Turkey, killing more than 4,000. Carolyn and John F. Kennedy attend the funeral services for their stepfather, Hugh Auchincloss, and Donna Summer divorces actor Helmut Summer after 5 years of marriage. And that concludes, let me get to my slideshow. That concludes the slideshow for today. If you have any questions, you can just ask this 3D sad man with a lot of question marks. And I will talk to you next time. Tune in for what Andy does at Thanksgiving. MUBBO. Let me get out of here.